Hello and welcome to AI, Data and Digital Profession podcast series. I'm your host. My name is Asif Gill. I'm a professor in the School of Computer Science, University of Technology, Sydney. The purpose of this podcast series is that to facilitate knowledge sharing for public good. So I would like to welcome our guest today, Murali Sagi. Murali Sagi is with us today. Murali has a lot of experience across different sectors, and in particular decision making and automation, which is the topic of today's podcast. So welcome, Murali, and I would like to have your a little bit of introduction more what I have already introduced.
Thank you, Asif. It's a pleasure being here with you. I have had an interesting background. I started off as an electronics and communications engineer, then I moved on to computer science, business management, and finally law. So one could say I started in STEM and moved into humanities. Started from thinking in numbers to thinking in words. And along the way, I spent an entire lifetime on bringing about consistency in approach to decision making, which I'll talk about a bit later on. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Murali, for making a time today. So without further ado, okay, let's get ready for looking into the decision-making conversation. And while people are listening or watching to us, they're okay to share the video for learning purposes. In particular, it's for everyone who is watching that. Okay, I want to start with the first video, professional own journey. So you worked a lot across different places, right? And it would be interesting to know what step you have taken in your own journey as becoming starting and then becoming a professional and a senior executive. That would probably help others to learn about.
The way I would look at it, Asif, is after spending an entire lifetime, I've realized that I've always had intellectual curiosity and hunger for learning. My initial role was on building ground control radars for landing aircraft in bad weather conditions. Then I moved on to telecommunications and maintaining telecommunication equipment, then on to computer data processing, and finally designing and creating and building decision support systems for the judiciary. I would have to say the entire journey has taught me that when it comes to decisions, you know what you know, but there's a lot you don't know. That recognition is something that all of us must be aware of, because to make a good decision requires thinking at many, many levels.
Okay, now that's great. I know you are our decision expert in the country. So may I ask a very basic question? What is actually a decision?
There are many ways of looking at it. I would say it's not just a decision which leads to an outcome, but it starts with what I would call as first a judgment. What does the judgment do is decide which options should make it to the table. And then the decision becomes which option to choose in the circumstances. Daniel Kahneman, as you know, the 2002 Nobel Prize winner in economics, has done a huge amount of research in this field. One of the points he raises is that decisions can be quite noisy depending on the circumstances in which the decision is being made, and depending on the knowledge and capability of the individual who is making the decision, and all the inherent biases that affect that decision. And he does come up with a few suggestions on how you can improve it. I would say, from my experience, we have 4 layers which go through in making a decision. The first layer is the analytical layer, then the procedural layer, and then the interpersonal and emotional layer, and finally the big picture visionary layer.
So that's great. You broke down into 4 layers. You briefly mentioned about the decision error or decision noise. So how would you go about in practice measuring the decision quality?
Okay, this is where I probably should share. I was instrumental in the design of a decision support system which was designed in a way that it would bring about consistency in approach to sentencing. The idea is, if different people in a room are asked to make a decision given the same set of factors, the likelihood is each would make a decision based on their knowledge and experience and based on their circumstantial background, all those things, which means that the decision would be quite different based on who they are. But these decisions have an effect on the people receiving them or for the organization. When you have such great variation, it leads to a lot of uncertainty. And that uncertainty would lead to, not only from an economic point of view, inefficiency and probably lead to ineffectiveness too. So to bring about consistency in that decision, one needs to look at what can you do to reduce that separation between people of different backgrounds. The way to do that would be, I would say, first, make sure that all of them have access to information which would allow them to approach that decision making in a consistent way. Then the likelihood is that you will get an outcome which is reasonably consistent within a certain norm.
Okay. So consistency is a big thing, and when we have a diverse group making a decision, because it's going to impact people's life as well. And bringing back to now AI, currently there's a lot of hype about AI or data-driven approach to decision making. So, of course, AI can help us to bring some consistency or efficiency, but I'm just assuming that. What is your take on that of AI and how we can use AI to support the decision making?
That's an excellent question, because the way I see it is I like to look at things from an evolutionary point of view, and we are at a point in time now of where we started 50 years ago. Initially, to support good decisions, we started with analytical tools like Excel and all that. Then we moved on to expert systems, which also took into account the procedures that matter. And then now we've come up with tools. The AI is a fantastic tool where it can combine analysis and procedural way of looking at things and produce human-like output. As it stands now, as someone has put it, it's like prediction without perception.
Yep.
The system itself is not conscious, but it does a magic job at predicting a pattern which makes sense, right? But as I said earlier, to make a good decision, you still need to add that layer of interpersonal, emotional content to it, and also that big picture, visionary aspects before a decision is made, which can be quite useful. The more important thing is where human beings differ from AI is that you can think of multiple ideas, join them from very incompatible frameworks coming from different fields, and come up with a solution, which I still think only human beings can do.
Yep. And do you see challenges in moving forward? Because probably not that a single day when I didn't hear about AI, even from my wife, from my, let's say, the grandfather. They talk about AI. And I think our kids, next generation, they're not going to be digital savvy or native. They're going to be AI native. So how you see the tension, interaction between human and AI when making the decisions?
You see, progressive technology cannot be stopped. AI, as it is available, you have narrow AI. We're still not there at artificial general intelligence and all, but even with the narrow AI that we have, I think it's an amazing development that it is able to put together sequences of zeros and ones so that it actually makes sense for a human being who's able to interpret those zeros and ones which are presented back. But we are talking about the current generation who have learned without AI, being able to use AI and judge what is coming out is right or wrong, or whether to accept it as gospel truth or not. But if you start to have a generation afterwards who have not really gone through the critical thinking process of having to imagine themselves, but they've accepted what comes out of these prediction machines as the truth. If what is coming out of the prediction machine is not the truth, they are bound to be misled. And how do they develop the ability to criticize and critically analyze it? And as you know, there's this old saying that, garbage in, garbage out. So when you do not know what those models have been trained on, I'm just talking about the LLMs or the transformer models.
Or foundation models, which being pre-trained models,
right.
Yes.
What they're being trained on, we would not know what they can predict. And more importantly, I still worry about drift in these models over time too. How do we audit them to make sure that the drift is not so much that it starts producing erroneous outputs? So we still have a long way to go. If there's anything that I would say that people need to be even more cautious is about critical thinking. I would be the first one to use the AI models, but will I always believe what it says? Probably not. But will I use it? Yes.
I think this is a great insight. Still, there's an appetite for use, but important is that audit the data they're trained on and audit the decision they make, so we know that what decision were made based on what data.
That's correct.
That's a great insight. I'm going to come to again the little part of recommendation. I mean, you worked a lot in the judicial system where the decision can change someone's life, right?
That's correct.
And the far-reaching kind of impact on their life, personal life. So what would you recommend to the upcoming people who are studying decision-making and AI and automation and the people who are already experienced? What one thing they should be aware of or be mindful of when using AI?
That's a very good question. The way I've been thinking about it is you have to think about it at 4 levels. The first level is predictions made by AI relatively harmless. You've got your phone suggesting the next word and so on and so forth. It can be at times annoying, but sometimes useful, but harmless. Then the next level is a decision which says, for example, it has an impact on a human being to the extent that if they do not like it, they can go automatic right of appeal to a human being who can override that system's decision. And the third level is there is a human being adjusting all the parameters and an output comes out, and that human being is still accountable for the decision. But the fourth level is the level that I've been working on, is when there is potential for human harm. In my view, when there is potential for human harm, using a black box for making a decision, even if a human being is accountable for that decision, I'm not comfortable with it. I would like that black box to be able to display how it has made that decision so that that reasoning process could be understood. And if the decision that comes out needs to be reviewed by another body or a court or a person, they need to understand the reasoning process that has been followed so that they can make a different decision. So to review a decision, you need to know how a decision has been made, not just accept that the decision has been made, even if a human being is accountable for it.
That's like excellent advice about reasoning, which is really a human trait, right? Murali, it was a pleasure having a chat with you, but before I conclude, leaders at your level, they have some legacy, right? What is yours, and what would you recommend for students and early career professionals?
I would say I was always willing to admit ignorance. See, when you are willing to admit ignorance, it leads to curiosity, and curiosity leads to wanting to learn and observe things. And observation leads to coming up with some hypothesis, which again leads to experimenting, verification of findings, knowledge, and wisdom. So I would say to everybody, don't be afraid to admit ignorance.
We don't know, of course, everything, yes.
And always show curiosity and a hunger for learning.
I think this is fantastic. I think you raised a lot of good points, I think, for our students and audience about decomposing decision at different levels. And I think humans always in the loop, and the reasoning, not so much about the decisions and the outcome, but behind the scene reasoning and decision orders. We do data audits, but I think we need to carefully look at our decision orders as well. I think this is pretty much from our side today. I would like to thank you, Murali, for joining us, and looking forward to you have back again. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, all I would say is don't be afraid of technology. It's there to work with us, not against us. Just use it sensibly.
Yeah, no. Thank you, Murali. Good piece of advice
Thank
to
you.
conclude on. Thank you.